Marine Corps boot camp, normally a 3-month program that somehow turned into 11 months for this Marine as she battles through in her fight of perseverance to make sure she earns the title of a U.S. Marine. This came across my awareness from Not in Regs on Instagram. Check them out, and nowhere else has picked this up from what I've seen other than the official military page which shares this stuff over on DVID. So here we see quitting was never an option. Female Marine graduates after 11 months at Parris Island. Now if you look, this stone cold killer looks like she's there, more dedicated than ever in her dress uniform there, and obviously, you know, she toughed it out. Now, from what the document says here, it looks like she was recruited out of Fullerton, California, and left for boot camp of March of 2021. So she has just recently graduated, and it didn't take long for her to be rolled out of the initial cycle of boot camp. They say 1 month into recruit training, Dominguez Velasquez started having pain in her hips. The Navy doctors informed her she had broken her hip during training, and then she, in quotation, says, "I honestly don't even remember how or when I broke it," says Dominguez Velasquez. "All I could think about was the fact that I knew I couldn't continue with my platoon in training." So as somebody that's worked periodically over there before at some point, from my own personal experience, I can tell you women specifically going through Marine Corps boot camp do have a lot of issues with hip pain, which usually ends up being the femur that goes into where the hip is at, and you can have femoral neck stress fractures, which can take a long time to heal. A lot of this is because a lot of the low impact that you're having, but the compression weight of constantly being pressed on, which is notoriously known to cause these stress fractures, and this is a very common thing. But I would say the 11 months is not very common. They say shortly after finding out the news, Dominguez Velasquez transferred to the female rehabilitation platoon on the depot. FRP is for recruits who become injured during training and need time to rehabilitate until they are ready to continue. If you don't know what this is, or you've never seen this in a boot camp, by any means or chance, you are blessed. I've never been in one, but hearing the stories of putting your training on hold is the worst case scenario. And that's because you're not being treated like a human. You don't have a phone. You don't have the ability to go home, especially during COVID times. On top of that, you are still in the mindset of the daunting idea that you still have to continue on with boot camp and, you know, hopefully heal up within an appropriate amount of time. She says, "There were times in FRP that I was really down about being hurt, but there was this one recruit who I really looked up to that kept me going," claims Dominguez Velasquez. "She was originally in my sister platoon when I started out in November Company, and she was extremely resilient. I looked up to her because she never gave up, regardless of her injury or how long she took to get better. It felt like forever being out of training," says Dominguez Velasquez. "On the bright side, I was able to build a whole new family in FRP. Even now, I'm still a little sad knowing some of the females I was with are still there." She thinks these people are family. That's how long she was there. And I'm going to analyze this and say, if you were injured to this level, I'm sure they probably gave her an ultimatum of like, hey, you can get out of the Marine Corps if that's what you want to do, but we could keep you in and see if you get better unless you keep going through. I will tell you, most recruits that, you know, have this timeline of 11 months are probably already not going to want to do it. On top of that, she's in a service where it already has the longest boot camp, where it's like people already shy away from it because of that alone. So I can tell you, I personally had to tell somebody that they broke their ankle during one of their evolutions where they tried to yank it out of one of the holes that were there at Marine Corps Recruit Depot, and they were going to be at least on hold for 6 weeks. And, you know, this person went into tears, and I can understand why, and that's why I wanted to share this story, because boot camp does not always go according to plan. It says, "It took 7 months in total for Dominguez Velasquez to completely heal before returning to training with Kilo Company. Finally, she returned where she was initially pulled from training Grass Week. Grass Week is where recruits start learning the fundamentals of rifle marksmanship." And then she goes on to say, "It truly feels absolutely amazing to have finally graduated and earned the title of United States Marine," says Dominguez Velasquez. "When I was in FRP, I'd see people come back from the Crucible and it would make me so sad. Coming back from the Crucible, I was so happy I can't even put it into words. I was yelling cadence so loudly, thinking to myself that I finally made it." I mean, hell, at this point, they should probably have made her a permanent staff member. Been like, "You're an honorary member here. You pretty much know the entire curriculum." Bet you she was the leader of FRP while she was there. They're like, "Dominguez Velasquez, You know everything there is to know here. You're the honorary kind of Marine that just hasn't made it through the crucible yet. But to be honest, she does share some kind words of wisdom to future people that might be in this situation, because I do know a lot of people do want to earn that title of being a U.S. Marine. She says, I think if someone ever goes through something similar to me, they should remind themselves that if you start something, you should finish it. And she also says, we have so much time in our lives, and this is such a small moment compared to that. It felt so quick going from yellow footprints to a Marine. You gotta love that even on the comments of this post, it's like the swinging D contest of whose is bigger. Nicholas Brooks 20 says, ain't S. I was at San Diego a year, and I love Not Reg's response says, congrats. It's almost like everybody expects a chronological record, like there's someone that makes it on a board of like, this person made it through boot camp the longest. GRTW says, saw something similar like that at San Diego. Dude was there for so long, drill instructors wouldn't bother messing with him. They would greet him like if he was one of the boys. We all have these folklore stories that somehow end up making it through the slithery grapevine of stories, but it doesn't make her issue any less relevant, and kind of like a story of learning about passing through perseverance and making sure that you're committed to your goals. Also, I bet you her bank account is loaded with pay, as she's paid for nothing the entire time besides the essentials, maybe stuff to wash her hair and things like that, because honestly, she has nowhere else to spend it while she's in boot camp. Now, from this situation, I also want to reflect, because she's not wrong, where when I look at how long your boot camp experience is in relation to your entire 4-year, 5-year, or 6-year contract. For example, Navy boot camp, if you calculate 8 weeks to your entire 4 years, it's 4% of your entire time in the military. So realistically, you being so anxious or nervous about that versus maybe something that could be a deployment of 9 months or even less than that, 6 months, would be a lot bigger portion of your military career that would likely be more defining. But in hindsight, I do believe that more people are going to find that their time in the fleet or time of actual service doing the job, meeting people around them and having those experiences of being an actual military member will be more formative than maybe something like boot camp. But I do commend her for sticking it out, because I'll say this, I don't think many recruits would be wanting to do this exact path that she's taken, and hopefully A School is going to treat her right, MCT or whatever she goes on to in her next endeavors as far as her military service goes. What do you guys think about this story of perseverance? Do you have a story of somebody that has gone through boot camp and spent several weeks, if not months, or have you had that experience yourself? Let me know in the comments below how that turned out and how you dealt with it, or did you leave boot camp afterwards because you were like, I'm not going to heal up fast enough? I'd love to hear your stories down in the comments below. If you guys have questions about this or anything else, you can always support over at patreon.com for special perks and benefits. On top of that, YouTube join button below this video for special perks and benefits. If you have questions, hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.